Her name was Chloe Bennett. She was 28 years old and worked as a graphic designer in Seattle. Just as she was about to transfer the $4,500 deposit for the wedding venue, Chloe watched her fiancé turn her into a joke in front of hundreds of people. Her phone vibrated on the table. A Livestream notification appeared from the account of Marcus, Ethan's best friend. Chloe assumed it was just some stupid stunt from the bachelor party. She tapped it. Her smile disappeared instantly. Ethan was standing in the middle of a room filled with liquor bottles, wearing a groom sash around his neck, with one arm wrapped around Marcus's shoulders. Behind them, nearly a dozen men were shouting. Marcus asked how it felt knowing Ethan was about to be chained down for the rest of his life. Ethan burst out laughing. He said Chloe was such a safe choice that she was almost boring. She always paid the bills on time, checked the doors before going to bed, prepared meals for the entire week, and reminded him to finish his client files. Everything Chloe had done to build a home became proof, in Ethan's words, that she was suffocating and controlling. The crowd roared with laughter. Chloe did not look away from the screen. She listened as Ethan imitated her voice. Marcus called her an unpaid manager. Then Ethan began sharing intimate details about their relationship, casually admitting that he had pretended several times because he was bored. Chloe's hands turned ice cold. Not because she was embarrassed, because she finally understood that the man she was planning to marry had never respected her. Then Marcus brought up Clara, one of Ethan's co-workers. A month earlier, Ethan had claimed there were not enough rooms during a business trip to Portland, so he had to stay at the hotel longer. Marcus asked whether that night had really been about a room shortage. Ethan did not deny it. He raised his bottle and said some things needed to happen before a man officially lost his freedom. The room erupted in cheers. Chloe sat completely still for several seconds. On her computer, the money transfer was still waiting for confirmation. Beside, it was the wedding plan she had spent nearly 8 months perfecting. She had arranged every contract and every expense herself. Chloe slowly drew in a breath. Then she closed the transfer window. She activated the screen recording function and saved the entire live stream. She did not call Ethan. She did not argue. She did not give him a chance to erase the evidence and claim that she had misunderstood. When Marcus turned the camera toward the comments, Chloe used her real account to write one sentence. "Do not bother anymore. You are free now." The laughter stopped instantly. Ethan stared at the phone. Marcus hurriedly ended the live stream, but it was already too late. Chloe called the wedding venue and canceled the reservation, then terminated the contract with the decoration company. After that, she logged into the Adobe Creative Cloud system and the 3-dimensional model database that she personally paid for. Ethan and Marcus had been using those accounts for months to take on private projects without covering any of the costs. What they did not know was that every commercial license, every original data file, and all administrative rights were registered in Chloe's name. She changed the passwords. She revoked their devices. She locked their access. A few minutes later, her phone began vibrating non-stop. Ethan called. Marcus called. Messages poured in, some begging, some insulting her, and others accusing her of destroying their work. Chloe placed the phone face down on the table. Ethan had always believed she was simply a stable, predictable woman who would forgive him because she was afraid of starting over. He was wrong. The calmness Ethan had mocked was Chloe's real power. She did not need to smash anything. She only needed to take back what had always belonged to her. And that was only the first step. The following afternoon, Ethan returned to the apartment, not to apologize, but to demand the things he believed Chloe had no right to take away. The door flew open so violently that it slammed into the wall behind it. Ethan entered first, with Marcus close behind him. Both men looked exhausted after a night with almost no sleep, but the shame on their faces quickly turned into anger. Chloe was sitting on the sofa with an open book in her hands. On the table in front of her were her phone, her laptop, and a small box containing documents related to the wedding. Ethan looked around the room as though searching for proof that Chloe had been crying. There was none. No swollen red eyes, no open suitcase in the middle of the room, no desperate woman waiting for him to explain himself. There was only silence, and it disturbed him more than any screaming ever could. Ethan threw his keys onto the table. You canceled the wedding venue. You locked all the design accounts. My projects and Marcus's projects have been frozen since this morning. Do you have any idea what kind of damage you have caused?" Chloe closed her book. She did not answer immediately. Marcus stepped forward and said they had only been joking while they were drinking. According to him, Chloe had overreacted to a meaningless live stream. Ethan immediately continued. He accused Chloe of spying on him, deliberately humiliating him in front of his friends, and taking advantage of his drunken state to destroy his work. Chloe looked at the man who had once promised to protect her for the rest of his life. In a single night, Ethan had transformed himself from the betrayer into the victim. She placed her phone on the table and played the video she had saved. Ethan's laughter filled the living room. Every insult, every private story, every detail about Clara and the hotel room. Marcus turned pale. He looked at Ethan, then glanced toward the door as though he wanted to leave before the situation became worse. Ethan remained still for several seconds. When he realized he could not deny what had happened, he turned to anger. He said he had been drunk. He said everyone said stupid things at bachelor parties. He said Chloe had no right to record a private conversation. Chloe paused the video at the exact moment Ethan raised his bottle and laughed about the night he spent at the hotel with Clara. She looked directly at him. "I did not humiliate you. You humiliated yourself." The room fell completely silent. Marcus muttered that Chloe should delete the video unless she wanted trouble. His voice was not loud, but the threat behind it was unmistakable. Chloe touched the screen of her phone. "If you continue, I will start recording. Then you can explain what you just said to my lawyer." Marcus immediately stepped back. Ethan stared at Chloe as though he were realizing for the first time that the woman standing before him was no longer under his control. He demanded to remain in the apartment because he had contributed to the rent, but Chloe simply pointed toward 2 bags that had already been placed near the door. Inside were Ethan's clothes, shoes, and essential personal belongings. She told him he could return for the rest when a witness was present. The apartment was in her name. She had paid the security deposit. She had also signed the lease before Ethan moved in. Ethan picked up the 2 bags, his face turning bright red. Before leaving, he turned around and told Chloe she would regret destroying their marriage over a joke. Chloe did not respond. The door slammed so hard that the picture frame on the wall shook. 2 hours later, Chloe's phone rang. The caller was Arthur, Ethan's father. He did not ask whether she was all right. He criticized Chloe for acting impulsively, ending the engagement too quickly, and turning his family into a subject of public gossip. Ethan had told him that Chloe was jealous, had misunderstood a few harmless comments, and had intentionally taken revenge by destroying his work. Chloe listened until he finished. Then she asked only one question. "Would you like to see the 10-minute video?" Arthur fell silent. Chloe sent him the file. 20 minutes later, he called again. This time, his voice was completely different. There were no more accusations, no more attempts to defend Ethan. Arthur said he had watched the entire video twice. He apologized to Chloe for calling before learning the truth. He admitted that he was ashamed of the way Ethan had treated the woman who had cared for him and supported him for years. Before ending the call, Arthur said he would make Ethan take responsibility. Chloe looked at the quiet apartment in front of her. For the first time since she had opened the live stream, she allowed herself to release a deep breath. It was not over yet. But the truth had finally begun to speak. 3 days later, Ethan realized that losing the wedding had only been the first consequence. That morning, Chloe opened the equipment cabinet to prepare for a client photo shoot. The case containing her $3,000 lens collection was gone. She checked every drawer again, then accessed the footage from the building's hallway camera. Ethan appeared in the recording on the afternoon he left. In addition to the 2 bags of clothes, he was carrying a large backpack that Chloe had not packed for him. Chloe did not call to confront him. She collected copies of the purchase receipts, the serial number of every lens, and the security footage. Then she sent Ethan a formal email demanding that all of her property be returned within 24 hours. She also attached a spreadsheet listing the rent, utilities, and shared household expenses for the month. Ethan was responsible for half. If he failed to pay, Chloe would turn the evidence over to her lawyer and the police. Less than 10 minutes later, Ethan called. Chloe did not answer. He texted that the lenses were shared property. He accused Chloe of trying to profit from the situation. Finally, when she still did not respond, Ethan claimed that she was destroying his life. Chloe replied with only one sentence. "The receipts are in my name. The deadline remains unchanged." That afternoon, violent pounding shook the door. Helena, Ethan's mother, was standing in the hallway. The moment Chloe opened the door, Helena walked inside without waiting to be invited. Her face was red with anger. She said Chloe was being selfish. She accused her of placing her pride above love and ruining Ethan's future over a few drunken remarks. According to Helena, a mature woman should know how to endure difficult situations. Ethan had lost his wedding, his home, and was now at risk of losing his job. She believed Chloe should restore access to the design accounts, withdraw the email demanding the return of her property, and give her son another chance. Chloe placed her phone on the table. She turned on the speaker and called Arthur. Helena immediately fell silent when she heard her husband's voice. Arthur asked where she was. When he learned that she was inside Chloe's apartment, he ordered her to leave immediately. Helena protested. She said Ethan had only made one small mistake. Arthur cut her off. He said, publicly humiliating his fiancé, admitting to infidelity, and taking property that did not belong to him were not small mistakes. They were a series of deliberate choices. Helena stared at Chloe in disbelief. For the first time, the woman who had always protected Ethan no longer had her husband's support. She left without another word. But Chloe was not finished with what needed to be done. The live stream had exposed more than Ethan's betrayal. He had clearly mentioned Clara, the business trip, and the hotel room paid for by the company. Marcus had also accidentally discussed several private projects they had completed using software and data without valid licenses. Chloe gathered the video, the emails, and the account ownership records, then sent everything to the Human Resources Department at Ethan's company. She did not add any accusations. She simply provided the evidence. 2 days later, Ethan was suspended. The internal investigation confirmed that he had violated company ethics policies, used unauthorized resources, and engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a coworker during a business trip. Ethan was fired. Clara was transferred out of the communications department. Once she realized Ethan no longer had the position, reputation, or connections that had attracted her, she immediately cut off all contact with him. Marcus also began avoiding Ethan. The men who had laughed the loudest during the live stream now claimed they had nothing to do with it. That weekend, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him at a quiet cafe. He placed the backpack on the table. Every lens was inside and had been fully inspected. Then he handed Chloe a check covering Ethan's unpaid share of the rent. Ethan was sitting in the chair beside him. He looked exhausted, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes heavy from lack of sleep. Arthur ordered his son to apologize. Ethan said a few brief sentences, but his tone still suggested that he believed he was the one who had been treated unfairly. Chloe did not argue. She inspected each lens, accepted the check, and placed the engagement ring on the table. Ethan stared at the ring, and the expression on his face changed. Perhaps only then did he truly understand that Chloe was never coming back. She stood, thanked Arthur, and walked out of the cafe. She did not look back. She did not hesitate. Ethan had always believed power belonged to the person who spoke the loudest. Chloe proved the opposite. Real power belonged to the person who kept the evidence, understood her own worth, and had the courage to close the door at the right moment. 1 month later, Ethan moved out of downtown Seattle with 2 suitcases, an old laptop, and the small amount of money he had left. The room he rented was in the suburbs, above an auto repair shop. The ceiling was low, the walls were thin, and the window overlooked a parking lot stained with motor oil. Every morning, Ethan took 2 buses to a small design firm where he started over in an entry-level position. There was no glass office, there were no major clients, no one called him promising anymore. His new salary was barely enough to cover the rent, food, and the debts he had once assumed Chloe would always help him carry. Ethan continued telling people that a cold-hearted woman had destroyed him, but Marcus knew Chloe had not created the live stream. When Ethan began blaming his friends, Marcus avoided him. One by one, the men who had cheered at the party also left the group chat. No one wanted to stand beside a man who always needed someone else to take the blame for him. Helena blamed the company, blamed Arthur, and blamed Chloe for refusing to forgive, but she could not restore Ethan's job, his reputation, or the woman who had once kept his life stable. Arthur did not rescue his son either. He said Ethan had to face the consequences of his own choices. Meanwhile, Chloe used the money she had saved for the wedding to buy a ticket to Norway. Ethan had always said the trip was too expensive and unnecessary, even though Chloe had saved most of the money herself. This time, she did not need anyone's approval. The day she arrived in Oslo, the cold air filled her lungs and cleared her mind more effectively than any words of comfort. She walked through the quiet streets with her camera and the lens collection she had recovered. No one rushed her. No one criticized her for planning too carefully. No one turned her attentiveness into a flaw. A few days later, Chloe stood beside a fjord as the sky began to brighten. The water reflected long bands of silver clouds. The first light of dawn slowly spread across the snow-covered mountains. She raised her camera, then lowered it again. Some moments did not need to be proven to anyone. Chloe remembered every bill she had paid on time, every meal she had prepared, and every client file she had corrected for Ethan after midnight. She had once believed that if she tried a little harder, her devotion would finally be recognized. Now she understood that the problem had never been that she was not good enough. Ethan had simply grown accustomed to receiving without appreciating anything. Her phone vibrated inside her coat pocket. Arthur had sent a message wishing Chloe a peaceful journey and a happy life. She smiled, then put her phone away. After the trip, an architecture firm in Seattle contacted Chloe. They had discovered that many of the designs Ethan had taken credit for had actually been created by her. The company offered Chloe full creative control over a major project. Ethan had always treated her as someone who stood in the background. The truth was that Chloe had built the foundation beneath the success he once bragged about. The question Ethan had mocked during the live stream, whether he should marry this woman, ultimately became the greatest gift he accidentally gave Chloe. It helped her leave before it was too late. A woman's stability and thoughtfulness should never become reasons for others to ridicule her. If you were in Chloe's position, would you have been able to remain calm, preserve the evidence, and end everything as decisively as she did? Or would you have handled the situation differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to follow more powerful stories about betrayal, self-respect, and the journey of reclaiming your true worth.